Killer. The mind. Is a mind killer, a mind killer, a mind killer. There is a mind killer, a mind killer, a mind killer. There is a mind killer, a mind killer. Is the mind killer. killer. The mind.
And there you guys have it. That was the base game for Rez. Now, for those of you who have played it before, you know that there's another part of the original game, which would be, the extra bonus stages and the Lost Area, which kind of acts as a sixth place. I don't plan on doing that one for this run, maybe at a later date, but I mostly wanted to show off the base game for this playthrough. With that being said, we're not done quite yet with this. We're actually going to do the area that's exclusive to this version of the game, which is Rez Infinite. Um, there's spots in, or there's a specific area that they give you that's made. It's supposed to cater more toward the VR stuff. So if you have like a PS4 VR or an Oculus Rift, or I guess an HTC Vive, though I think an HTC Vive is a little overkill for what it's doing here. But if you have those, you can do it in VR. You can actually do the base game in VR too. I just don't have a VR unit. So, with that being said, though, we're going to play that without, without the VR capability and stuff, because you can play it normally with a controller. But I really wanted to show that off because I feel like, as far as additions go for this game, that was like a spectacular experience. It's even better with VR. But, if you guys want to do that, you got to do it yourself, obviously. But yeah, so tomorrow we'll be doing Area X. Um, and then I think I'll talk a little bit about the game story. Uh, I'll go ahead and do that now. So basically, the game does actually have a story. It's not just some arcadey shoot 'em up or whatever. The little like white character that you see at the beginning of the game and toward the end there, that is Eden. I think it's Eden. Yeah, pretty sure it's Eden. She is a part of this thing, or this great internet thing called Project Lumi, or not Lumi, Project K, um, and she oversees it. Basically, the whole thing is like this huge advancement to, I guess, help humanity thrive or something. I don't remember exactly what the story is, but in terms of the game, she's the person, or she's the being that you're trying to save. Your character, who for this game, there's another name for him, but I'm just gonna call him Hacker. Uh, you play as this thing called Hacker, which uh, in itself is a computer virus that, before the game starts, ends up infecting the Project K system with his own viruses, just to be like, I'm the more powerful, uh, computer program or whatever. Kind of just to show off, basically. Well, because of that, Eden ends up doubting her existence or something like that. It's really weird, but she ends up doubting your existence, and because of that, she starts to go into this shutdown phase. So when that happens, you know, if the network crashes, it's going to be pretty catastrophic in that universe. So, the hacker is like, "Well, I did a really bad thing here," or something like that. I don't know. I guess he just kind of goes back on it, but he ends up going through the system and essentially goes on this huge journey through the system to free her from the virus and basically reboot her so she can continue to do her job. And that's essentially what you're doing. Every enemy in the game is a virus that you initially created, and you're going through and blasting them all away and stuff like that. Taking care of the main big boss virus at the end to clear that area. So, pretty neat. I absolutely enjoy this game. Uh, I will say this for those of you who don't know, and I'm assuming a lot of you, I did not get the best ending on that one. I actually did horribly on that last level. Um, they automatically give you the last, I think it's called evolution. It's either an evolution or a level, but they automatically give you that, which is that little baby thing that you see at the end. Um, which is great. In order to get the best ending, I had to not get hit, which would have given me, one ending in general. It's kind of what I was going for. But the best ending also requires that you get, like, I want to say 95% enemies shot down or something like that, which I've never been able to do. But I was really trying this time. I was going pretty hard, you just saw my fingers going on that controller. But I at least wanted to get the norm, or like the better ending, which is where you keep the final form and stuff. Unfortunately, I got hit a couple times during the second boss of all things. It really depends on your setup when you're going through those. My problem was I ended up getting tripped up on the second one because I usually save my overdrives, which are those little red bars in the bottom right of the screen when you're playing. You get enough of those and they act as like a screen nuke. The only problem is they have to lock on to enemies and stuff, and sometimes they don't. They'll lock on to everything else, but they can't lock on to everything. So every now and then you'll see like a bunch of missiles coming at you, and you can't wipe them all out. So it also sucks because while as you're coming out of it, you don't necessarily get control of your gun quite yet. So you end up getting hit anyway because you can't do anything about it. Uh, you know, the gameplay itself, all you're really controlling is where you're shooting, or the aiming reticle, and the fire button. There's no like free movement or anything like that, like in Panzer Dragoon. The games are very similar in that regard, but you're still, or in this game, you are pretty much locked in terms of like your movement, so you can't move out of the way or whatever. In Area X, they changed that though. You have freedom to move wherever the heck you want to go. Until you hit like an invisible wall. But that would make it, or if they didn't have that, that would be a huge addition, and it would go on for way too long. But original game, no such thing. So yeah, uh, if I'd have saved the frenzies or the overdrives, those little red things that shoot everywhere, I could have probably gotten through that second boss a little bit easier. But the first boss also ends up, just completely annihilating you with missiles as well. Almost, like, almost worse than the second one. Um, but yeah, maybe next time I'll go through it again. I'll try and get the best ending. Or maybe I'll just record in my own spare time. And if I do end up getting it, I'll post it. But I wouldn't count on it. That's like, it takes a lot of skill. and 95% kills is like almost impossible for me, especially when I'm recording. That was the other thing. With the software that I'm using, I don't know if it's the software or if it's just the computer build that I have, but it is not picking up the, or it's not picking up the slack when it comes to input delay, which for those of you who don't know, it's like, it's basically when you push a button, it takes like a little bit extra time for the action to actually happen. So let's say I was the snap right there, you could hear it as the action was done. But if there's input delay, I could snap, you'd hear, or you'd see the action, but you'd hear the noise like, I want to say like a second and a half later or something like that. Essentially, that's what happens when I'm playing on this software. Technically, I could split it, so I could be recording on the bottom monitor and then playing the game on the top. But I just find that to be too complicated, and honestly, I don't think it would mitigate it much because then it's still going through a pass through, which probably adds its own input delay. So I try to be as minimalistic as possible with my setup. So, but anyway, I'll try and experiment around with it. But yeah, that pretty much threw me off throughout the whole thing because the first or the second and third level, I got absolutely annihilated. Actually, the fourth level yesterday, that took me by surprise. I got hit like 4 times during that because I had a full rank up and I ended up getting just decimated in that last area. So yeah, I don't know. This just wasn't my best playthrough. But with that being said, we will do better next time. So this might not be the last time I play it. I'm definitely planning on playing the successor to this game, Child of Eden, which is, from what I understand, set in the same universe. I'm I'm honestly under not under the influence. That just sounds weird. I'm under the thought that it's all set in the same universe, but the Child of Eden game is a prequel to Rez. So I'm not entirely sure if that's the case or not, but I'm gonna go with that. So, but it acts as a prequel to Rez. So, um, and I guess I'll wrap it up on like what Rez is. Rez was originally made for the Dreamcast. It was only available in Japan and I think Europe for Dreamcast users. America did not get one, unfortunately, but it was a really cool concept at the time. It heavily used the tremor packs. I actually have one right here. Uh, a little Dreamcast controller here, but it heavily used this little guy right here, the tremor packs. For those young ones out there that don't know, this is how you got your vibration from your controller when, back in the day. Dogs are barking like crazy. But the game relies heavily on that. The whole game is supposed to induce this sense of synesthesia or something like that, which is the, in a way, it's a condition where you see sounds. So, like, let's say a certain sound strums up or whatever. Certain people with synesthesia see a color to it or something like that, or they get a certain taste from it. It's kind of hard to explain. I highly recommend looking it up on your own if you want to learn more about it. I think it's an awesome phenomenon, and for them to make a whole game on it or based around that concept, it's really cool. It's one of the reasons why it's one of my favorite games of all time. I put it up there in like my top 10, maybe even my top 3. But yeah, cool stuff. But it ended up not getting released over here in America until later on, I think in 2001 or 2, and it ended up getting moved over to the PlayStation. So The cool thing about that one is it updated the frame rate on it. So the Dreamcast one ran at like 30 frames per second, which wasn't great. I mean, for the time, it's not too bad. But 60 frames per second on the PS2, clearly a little bit faster and just a little bit prettier to look at. But it ended up getting another re-release on the Xbox 360 and I think the PS3. I'm not too sure on that one. But I have the Xbox 360 version, which is Rez HD. So, not too bad. Oh, that's another thing about the PS2 one. PS2, in Japan, it had a special edition release, and it came with a special uh, device called a trance vibrator. Now, I'm not gonna go into details on like the criticism behind it and stuff, but you know, judging by the name, it clearly had or it was clearly used in certain ways that weren't intended. But the idea behind it was you're supposed to plug it in to the PS2's USB drive or whatever, and it had like 4 or 5 times the uh, power of the vibration that was in like a PS2 controller. So it was made specifically to vibrate in sync with the music and certain actions and stuff like that. It's a really cool concept, and I really wish I had one just to like show off uh, for videos like this or for games like this. In fact, I think you can plug that into the Xbox version and the PS4 uh, version that we played, and I think it works on those too. Clearly, it doesn't work on the Dreamcast because there's no USB on it, but it's still a pretty cool gem, despite its criticism. Uh, Neat little collectible item. Very loud though. I've seen videos of it, and it's louder than a phone vibrating on the table or whatever. If it's set all the way up and you're in like the last part of the level, expect that thing to just jump around all over the place. It's almost like a power drill. But anyway, they ended up releasing the HD re-release for for Xbox 360, maybe PS3, and that ended up not really adding too much. I think it had like an option to play the original graphics and then like a slightly higher resolution version of the game too. Um, but in order to compensate for the trance vibrator not being involved with it, because they were still going with that idea for maximum uh, stimulation, I guess. Wow, this sounds really really awkward. But for maximum stimulation, they wanted to add a that mode into the game somehow. So what you do, and this applies to the PS4 version as well, you would activate this mode called trance mode, and you'd take like 3 other controllers. So you'd have all 4 controllers connected to one system, and you'd place them strategically, or the other 3 controllers strategically on your body. I assume there was supposed to be like 2 on your legs and like one on your feet. I'm not entirely sure how you're supposed to do that. Maybe there's a suit that you could make or something. I don't know. But they were all supposed to vibrate in sync with each other. And as corny and as like really weird as that sounds, it actually sounds pretty cool. It's a neat way to immerse the player, so to say. So there's that, and then after they released that, years down the road in 2016, we ended up with Rez Infinite, which again improved on the graphics, but also gave us Area X, which is what we will be looking at tomorrow. Area X has like this massive. It's a massive level, and there's so much to look at and stuff. Uh, Highly recommend picking this game up, by the way. I can't express that enough. And if not the game, at least the soundtrack. The soundtrack is made by like legit artists and stuff in the for the time anyway. Um, nowadays I'm pretty sure they're not too well heard of. But Adam Freeland, who did the music for the last area that we were in, Area 5, oh my gosh, that dude is a genius in my eyes. Um, Absolutely love his music. That particular track, in Area 5, I think it's called Fear, that is, that's a jammer right there. As one of my friends would say, it's a real bopper. um, but yeah, it's like a remix of one of his other songs called Mind Killer. Uh, cool little Dune reference, by the way. The soundtrack for it doesn't have a version, or it has a different version of it. It's like an edited one without the samples from I think it's called California Soul. So it's a little bit different. Kind of a shame too, because the original, the one from the game, is like perfect. Uh, Not to say that the remix is bad, but I recommend giving all three a listen to. I'll link a video in the description for the remake of the game's version of the song, because somebody actually did go out of their way to do it, and you can listen to it on YouTube. I'm sure there's a download link to it somewhere, but I'll show the video for sure. But anyway, I'm going way too long on this video. This is probably already an hour long. So, with that being said, I will see you guys tomorrow for Area X. I'll probably talk at the end of it as well. We'll see. But till then, you guys have a fantastic day, night, wherever you may be. Stay safe, and I'll see you next time.